Yeah, that's got a lot. So we learned that we're not going to shoot the steel because it is divoting the steel. This is AR 500. People have been trying to make a new handgun round be a thing since the early 90s. While nobody is likely dethroning the 9mm and potentially the 45 ACP, there have been attempts at niche loads. The FN 57 by 28mm is a 40 grain projectile at about 1800 foot per second at the muzzle, but a lot of people compare it to a glorified 22 Magnum. Rock Island Armory has their 22 TCM, which is like a chopped down 223 case, which is kind of cool, but that's getting about 2000 feet per second out of a 5-inch 1911 style pistol. The problem with that is you've got velocity, but you don't have mass. So what if you 2x the mass and kept the velocity? That's where the 7.5 FK comes in. That's right, the 7.5 FK is slinging 95 to 101 grains at about 1800 feet per second at the muzzle. And the FK BRNO, I'm gonna go with Bruno because it's easier to say in English. I have no doubt you guys are gonna tell me how to say it in the comments, so please do let me know because I don't know. The FK BRNO PSD-C, that stands for compact, delivers that round in a package that you could potentially wear in a holster while you're going out into the field. This round is absolutely ridiculous, and I did get slow motion ballistic gelatin testing with it, so you're not gonna wanna miss that. Welcome back to the channel, guys. I'm David, and this is the FK BRNO PSD-C that is chambered in both 10mm, because there are conversion barrels available, and 7.5 FK, which is really the reason we're talking about this pistol now. And real quickly, be sure you're subscribed to the channel. YouTube's weird about unsubscribing people. And while we're at it, just follow me on X, because X is probably where gun content's gonna wind up if we don't get our act together on YouTube. But real quickly, before we get started, I do want to give a shout out to Optics Planet, who helped make this video possible. The 10mm rounds that I shot, as well as the ballistics gelatin, were on loan from Optics. I guess it's not on loan because they're probably don't want them back, but they were donated by Optics Planet. And if you want to maybe, check something out, that might help you there. Additionally, the pistol is on loan from the Italian Firearms Group, who's the importer for this pistol, and the ammo as well for the 7.5 FK. I know you guys are gonna have questions that I don't address. Italian Firearms Group is a good place to get the answers to that, but the pistol itself and the ammunition for the PSD-C is available exclusively through, I'm not sure how to say this, Tacosa's Machine. There's an extra S in there, and I'm just gonna let that S be silent. But Tacosa Machine is the only place where you can check these things out. So there you go. So if you've been in the YouTube gun media space for a while, you can remember when the original PSD came out and the round of videos that did their rounds on all of the channels. The PSD-C is now the compact version of that pistol that is more suitable with a more achievable price point of about $1,500. Now, if you remember in those old YouTube videos, the ammunition was about $100 a box, but now partnering with the Tacosa Machine and Tool, they're going to start at least assembling, if not machining, all the pistols in Texas. The ammunition is being produced in Texas. It'll be available for just $60 a box, whereas it used to be $100 a box. The gun itself comes pretty much exactly as you'd see it with 2 magazines. The magazines are about 80 bucks a piece. Yeah, there's nothing about this pistol that is cheap. And the magazines with the 7.5 round can hold about 14 rounds. I was able to get 14 plus 1 out of the gun. And with 10mm, it would only hold about 10 rounds in the magazine when using the conversion barrel. Because this pistol does have a firing pin block, so it is a drop safe pistol, and it has a single action only action with the safety only on the left-hand side of the pistol. Sorry, left-handed people. Well, you'll still want to see the gel get shot, I promise. This pistol's mission is taking game in the field. The round was designed specifically to take game that weighed up to about 330 pounds at 100 yards. That requires a 6-inch barrel, which this is a 4.3-inch barrel here, so you're not going to get all of the same velocity, but the velocity still was impressive. And to my 10mm bros, potentially this does dethrone 10mm, and I realize there are super hot loads that I didn't use in this video with 10mm, but at the same time, what it does in the gel is devastating. Over penetration is definitely a thing. So if you're looking for like FBI, you know, 12 to 16 inches of penetration or whatever, this is gonna blow through that. Now the actual proportion of the gun, it has a compact grip, meaning that your pinky has enough space to get onto the grip, but just that. But what's wild about this is that the gun kind of mimics the Hudson H9. You see how low the recoil spring sits here? Yeah, this does the Hudson H9 thing where it puts the recoil spring pretty much in line with the web of your hand that helps tame the recoil somewhat in how it's coming into your arm, making the round still somewhat shootable. And to highlight that, after gaining confidence that I could control the gun and shoot its speed, my gun club had a USPSA style hit factor stage kind of set up that the wind absolutely destroyed because we have windstorms this time of year in Texas, and that's what happened when we were filming. But I was still able to shoot the gun pretty quickly and only manage one no shoot and forgetting one target, which, you know, that's what happens when you don't spend time learning the stage. But I was surprised at how manageable the gun actually is, because while the round hits hard, it's nowhere near as physically exhausting as like the 50 AE. Like the one time I shot the USPSA match with the 50 AE, that video is hilarious. You should check out that video. It's nowhere near as exhausting. Now, it did take its toll on me in one sitting. I think I shot about 200 rounds through it. I took it out a couple times to the indoor gun club and the outdoor gun club. But when I got back from the range after about 200 rounds, my arms just felt like I had a very heavy workout. Like it did take a little bit of recovery. So this is not a pistol that you're gonna go out and shoot recreationally. It absolutely has its purpose of being basically a hunting pistol or a backwoods pistol. From a velocity standpoint, I tried the two different loads. On the box, the flat nose says that it will get 1950 foot per second with a 6-inch barrel. Out of this, it was just shy of about 1750 foot per second, which is still moving. But that hollow point, it got a velocity of 1776 foot per second at the muzzle. That's right. The FK BRNO guys helped forge these slides with bald eagles. I just made that up. That probably didn't happen. First shots through the pistol with one of the guys at the gun club. We were firing at steel at about 27 or so yards. And what we learned is that it put pock marks in the steel. Not super deep ones, but enough to where, okay, that's not good for the steel. Let's not do that. And that's largely in part due to the velocity, but it also uses solid copper projectiles. It's part of the reason the ammunition is so expensive. And the steel at my gun club, I shot with my lever gun in 357 at over 1800 foot per second. With the lead core projectiles, the steel was fine, but with the solid copper, it took it out of it. So the obvious question becomes, how does it shoot relative to 10 millimeter as far as controllability is concerned? So obviously slow motion gun footage. And you can see that the lift with the 7.5 FK rounds is a little bit higher than the 10 millimeter. The 10 mil doesn't pop as much. It kind of shoves straight back more than the 7.5 does. So it's kind of like a 230 grain versus a 200 grain, 185 grain, 45 is kind of where I would put that. As far as accuracy is concerned, I don't really have great eyes for shooting iron sights precisely at 25 yards. Can do it with red dots, harder with iron sights, and especially at an indoor club where the lighting is bad, because that's what all the clubs are. And sure enough, I didn't print particularly impressive groups with it, and it helped me realize that the sight is not centered in the dovetail. So I need to adjust the sight, which is annoying, but it's not the end of the world. It's somewhat common. But where it gets really interesting is when we brought out the 10% clear ballistics gelatin. Now I shot 10 millimeter first, and I tested the Fort Scott tumble upon impact 125 grain at about 1800 foot per second, and it looked like this in the gel. Now watch what happens with the 101 grain flat point 7.5 round. See that little detonation when it went through, the smoke coming out of the gel, the kind of thing that only happens with rifle rounds. It was doing it with a pistol round. Very impressive. Swapping over to hollow points, out of 10 millimeter, I had Nosler Asp 180 grain jacketed hollow points. They're only at about 1150 foot per second from the muzzle, and it stopped in the gel, you know, 12 to 16 inches or whatever, like you like to see for a hollow point. But you notice how much the gel moves, not a whole bunch. Watch what happens when I shot it with the 7.5 jacketed hollow point, the 95 grain high terminal effect. you're probably not hearing is how much me and my 14-year-old cameraman were freaking out because it was really cool to witness in person.
Oh my gosh! Holy cow!
So yeah, the round is super capable. If you absolutely have to punch a hole in something and you absolutely hate about $1.25, then this gun has you covered because it absolutely just rips up targets. And just to give you an idea of how big the actual PSD-C is, this is it next to my Glock 19 with the Radian Ramjet Afterburner combo. It's roughly the same size. It's a little bit thicker than a Glock 19, but not a lot thicker, but it does weigh about 35 ounces. So even though it does have the polymer grip, it's still a little bit heavier and it's even blockier than a Glock grip. So do with that what you will. So while the gun is relatively small in the world of high caliber handguns, it's still somewhat carryable. I mean, you could actually conceal carry this if you wanted to and just did not care about over penetration. Other drawbacks, as I mentioned, lefties don't get a safety to be able to manipulate the safety. It is single action only and the trigger is somewhat heavy with a firing pin block. The reach on the trigger is somewhat far and it has a fair amount of over travel, but this is not a sport pistol, so you kind of have to judge it through a different lens. The trigger is very predictable, very manageable. Other drawbacks being the price. Obviously the gun is expensive and the ammo is very expensive at about $1.25 a shot. And the magazines being even more expensive at about $80 a pop, and you thought HK magazines were expensive. You can't shoot steel targets because you will pit the targets. And the rear sight wasn't centered in the dovetail, but that's not that big a deal. It's easy to adjust at the home level. So annoying, but not the end of the world. And none of that really, in my mind, is a deal breaker for a kind of deep woods style pistol, specifically with kind of a hunting bend to it. So while it does have kind of high caliber performance, it's still a very shootable gun, although it is very loud. For a semi-auto pistol that has 15 rounds on deck, I can't imagine a pistol that I would favor more carrying into the woods. And immediately where my mind went is, what if somebody got Lehigh Defense to load up some 7.5 FK rounds for this with their Extreme Penetrator or Extreme Defender projectiles? Those would be absolutely bonkers out of a gun like this. Like, I would love to see a cartridge with those projectiles loaded. It'd be insane. Either way, it is a pretty darn cool pistol. I have a lot of respect for it, but you should watch this video of me shooting the 50 AE in USPSA. It's a silly video.